Okay, one last thing I wanted to say. I'm not sure I've pissed off enough people with this video, so one last thing. A lot of times when a manufacturer, when a reviewer in a magazine's talking about a product and they describe it as having a lot of detail and air, I will almost bet you that's an artifact of it having ceramic caps in the system. When they talk about something sounding uh, fat or warm or closed in, lacking air, chances are it has film caps in it. So, again, if you like detail and brightness, you may want those ceramic caps in there. To me, uh, for me personally, when I hear, I can pick them out very easily. There are artifacts in an audio signal, and it can be irritating. So I tend to put film caps in everything. The ideal thing would be to have no caps. And if I can ever get this working, one of the things I've thought about doing is trying to build a preamplifier with um, that has dual supplies, dual B plus supplies, a positive high voltage, negative high voltage, putting the preamp circuit in the middle and having a DC servo. If I can find a fairly beefy op amp that can do that, it may have to be discrete, but building a DC servo so it doesn't have an output capacitor. This would be a unique design. And because I know a lot of the artifacts we associate with tube sound, a lot of them are coming from these great big coupling, film type coupling capacitors that are on the output. I know that because I built a solid state preamp, which I'll need to talk about. Okay, this is a solid state preamp I built recently, and it was kind of a quickie, but it's using a board which I don't know if it's there. You can kind of see BA3 on the board there, but this is a Nelson Pass designed front end board for a power amplifier. And everyone said, you know, this makes a damn good preamp front end too. Basically, you have JFETs on left and right input and MOSFETs left and right output, fully complementary. But the thing I wanted to talk about are these. The unit is not direct coupled output. There are capacitors, large film capacitors on the output, kind of like a tube preamp. And interestingly enough, this thing sounds a lot like a tube preamp. I mean, part of it is you're using, again, the square law solid state devices on both input and output. And part of it is the soft sound that the polypropylene film caps tend to impart. This unit has a regulated power supply with, as you can see, huge capacitors in it. This little supply here is mainly for the input switcher. But this chassis began life as I had built I'd gotten a Japanese kit to build a John Curl 2 JC2 preamp. which is a famous circuit that was used in the Mark Levinson preamps. And that didn't work too well. One, the John Curl circuit was designed to use JFETs in and out, and the kit arrived with bipolar transistors and wrong resistors. So I was able to find some of the classic JFETs used in the John Curl 2, but I could never get the resistor values right. So it was always a disappointingly sounding unit. So that was what this unit was originally designed for. And so it's fairly easy to just, I saw the BA3 preamp board on the DIY audio store and got one. I already had this sitting around, and it all went together fairly quick. I think I spent less than a week on it overall, and it sounds really quite good. I've mentioned before I could live with this preamp. It lacks the depth of tubes, maybe a little of the richness of tubes, but it's still not a bad sounding unit at all. So anyway, but my point is that yes, even these nice film capacitors can impart a sound, and it's just interesting that one of the things we equate with tube preamplifiers aren't the tubes themselves at all. It's the large film capacitors. They pass the signal through. Anyway, I've ranted and raved enough. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for putting up with this. I am interested to hear your comments as long as they're constructive. Again, thanks for listening to me. I don't mean to offend anyone or exclude anyone. I just wanted to give my viewpoint and perhaps share a little bit of my experience. But anyway, thanks for listening. Good night. So what am I trying to say here? Basically, that you should keep an open mind about tubes. They are very pure amplifying devices in terms of voltage, if not current. And you should keep an open mind about them. They are just another ingredient in the stew we use to create the most realistic or pleasing audio for our systems. And again, I'm no guru, expert, or even engineer. I'm just a tech muddling along on his own path, trying to figure this stuff out. But I have found that tubes are a very viable alternative to solid state, if not preferred. And again, because they are very linear devices, you can make a low distortion tube circuit without relying on massive amounts of negative feedback as a crutch. Tube circuits are inherently simple circuits, which means they have simple distortion characteristics. You're not going to get, harmonic distortion artifacts out to the 17th harmonic with a tube circuit, unless you really mess it up bad. So they are very good linear devices to consider. And I've always preferred them for their They're gentler, more natural sounding treble as opposed to what sounds like an artificial edge imposed on the treble by many solid state devices, especially the older generation of bipolar junction transistor circuits that existed in the 70s. But again, if you're on a budget, let's see, you can build a tube preamp, a basic tube preamp for about $200. It's not much more than going the op amp route, making a preamp. It's a little more dangerous. You're dealing with high voltages. But I would urge you to consider it because you'll find it's usually easier than you think to make a tube circuit, and it's hard to make a bad sounding tube circuit, unlike with solid state. I have a lot of iffy results on my solid state projects, whereas my tube projects seem to go well until I get overly ambitious, which is why I have this guy on the bench now. This is a hybrid circuit I tried to build that's balanced. It's based on the Borbley low power, what does he call it, op amp? Tube op amp circuit. And that didn't work out mainly because Borbley had spec'd a lot of obsolete devices, and foolish me, I tried to order parts off of eBay, and that can be a recipe for a disaster because you get, there are a lot of people selling factory reject parts on eBay as new old stock, and they may be new old stock, but there's a reason why no one wanted them the first go around. That's also an issue I have with this. This is a John Curl JC80 preamp board I got from China, and I've been stuffing it, but again, finding the parts for it, especially the MOSFET spec for that, is going to be difficult. That, and I have my doubts whether it'll sound better than the BA3 preamp I showed you. So again, it's a good idea to start out with a device that's very linear, that has a pleasant, what's the word I want, less objectionable harmonic distortion to start with, be it a tube, a JFET, or a vertical FET, VFET or SIT unit. Start out with good linear devices first, then you don't have to band-aid them. I mean, tubes, you can easily do a tube circuit with a mu follower and have distortion under 0.1% without negative feedback at all, which gives you a very, very simple distortion signature, which is far less audible. So feedback is a tool to be used judiciously. It's not a crutch. There are a lot of topologies out there that help you linearize the circuit. I just mentioned the mu follower, which is an active plate load on the tube. Nelson Pass uses a lot of circuits where he has a current source or mu follower on the drain of his MOSFET amps. For the same reason, it lowers the distortion and helps the device act in a more linear manner. So, again, running a unit in Class A, does help lower distortion. Class A is inherently the lowest distortion form of amplification. I'll put it over even Class D. And tube preamp circuits are inherently Class A. Op amps are not. An op amp, most op amps, if not all, have Class AB output stages in the op amp. And there are ways to cheat it into Class A, but again, do we need to? So Class B or Class AB can be corrected. You can run it with high bias to where it runs in Class A more or less at lower wattage ratings, and that's one thing Nelson Pass did with the ADCOM GFA 5800. It does run quite warm. That's why they have fans in it. It's the only ADCOM product that does, to my knowledge. Maybe they have a Pro amp that does. But I'll show you some pics of that. So anyway, I think I've belabored this enough. This may have to get cut in half into 2 videos. But anyway, again, thanks for watching. And I hope you got something from this. More than just righteous indignation and moral outrage. Anyway, thanks for watching.